This episode is sponsored by the Twindle Foundation. Learn more at www.twindlefoundation.org.
Let's talk.
So many people stay hidden due to fear. Fear of judgment, shame, or even guilt. You are not alone on your journey. Girl, you are not alone. This is a safe place. A place to be heard, a place to be free, a place to be yourself. Bring your girlfriends and let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it. But tell me a little about yourself, Miss Emma.
Okay, yeah, super. So I went through a divorce February 2020, so over 2 years ago now.
So that would be in the beginning of the pandemic. Right in the face of the pandemic.
It was literally about 4 weeks before we went on lockdown and we were seriously into the pandemic. So it was a decision I'd been wanting to do for about 5 years, but I found myself in such a rut where I just didn't have the confidence. I'd totally become to depend on my husband. And although I was very successful before my marriage, I kind of lost myself through the wife role, the mother role. And my husband was very controlling and very manipulative. And I think over the years, he gently, very subtly chipped away at my self-confidence, and I completely lost who I was. So it took me a long time to leave him, really. Once I'd made the decision, then it was okay. It was another battle ahead, really. So I went through a lot of personal development and really to find out why I had stayed so long and why I had kind of repeated attracting unhealthy relationships in my life. I'd never looked at, I never realized they were all unhealthy until I started personal development on myself. And then the key was to find out why and to ensure that I was never going to be in an unhealthy position again to put myself in another unhealthy relationship. So it was
Let me just chime in right there. I think that was so, what you're sharing is so beautiful, even though it was a very tragic or very hard time, going through that and processing that, because a lot of women, not only in relationships or marriages, but even in employment, a lot of times people stay in situations longer than they should, or because of certain circumstances, maybe not having enough money to exit, not knowing how to pick themselves up, once this is over, or not wanting to start over. A lot of people feel that they've invested so much, why am I going to give up now? And so that was very courageous of you, and even for that time period, because you said that it was probably 5 years that you had been, and going through that before you actually decided to say, hey, listen, this is about me, and I'm going to, move forward and do whatever was going inside of your head. But can you just talk to us about that, like leading up to that point, that 5 year period of time, like in the beginning, what was your thought process of it? How do I exit, or, what am I going to do next? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, my thought process was I needed to get out of the relationship, but I was also very scared about being able to go back into the commercial world and rebuilding a career after so long. Yes. I'd convinced myself that, nobody would employ me. I didn't have the tech knowledge. I didn't have today's social media knowledge. I couldn't train because I was a commercial director before. And I just taught myself into not being able to kind of reinvent. So that made me remain in the situation that I was in. Meanwhile, my relationship was getting more and more toxic. My son was getting older and much more aware of what was happening around him. And my husband was an alcoholic, and the alcoholism was getting set firmer into him. His behavior was getting worse. And I just thought one day I looked at my son and I just thought, forget about me. What are you teaching him? And that was the big driving force for me to say, right, no matter how hard this is going to get, no matter what sacrifices I may or may not have to take, they're going to be taken for him. And I was still at that time my feelings were set aside. It was more looking into his eyes, really, and knowing that deep down I was doing the wrong thing for him. So I made my decision. And then it was a case of, I literally, went into overdrive. I was living on adrenaline. I was trying to do everything at once. My husband was fighting at me to, stop all income. He stopped the car insurance. He cut the mobile phone off. He did everything to break me. And I just kept fighting on, really, and taking little steps and doing lots of audio books about, I didn't value myself, and I had to find out why I didn't value myself. So I read the Louise Hay's books and started to just stop the cyclone and start looking at me and why I didn't love myself and why I didn't want to kind of look in the mirror and see what was looking back at me. And I discovered on that journey that through childhood, I developed codependency traits. So I was built to kind of please and fix and look after everybody else but myself. My needs were never kind of validated. I always had to be doing something for somebody else to make me feel good because they would then tell me that I felt good. So once I discovered codependency, I really went into researching that and established I absolutely was codependent, and it was time to learn to manage it. And that was a turning point for me, really. I just realised that I am very worthy. I am full of value to myself and everybody that's key around me. I cut a lot of toxic people out of my life that I believed that were toxic, who were enabling the behaviour that surrounded me. And that all them steps kind of started to make me feel stronger and more confident in myself. So, scale on 2 years or 18 months, and I always believe and I always say to my clients that if you keep moving forward, then the right things will find you. You don't actually have to look for them. As long as you're moving forward, they will find you and opportunities will come in front of you if you have an open mind and an open heart. And that's what kind of happened, all of a sudden I found myself on a digital marketing course about online courses, and I come across Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi. I did all them courses, and then I did the coaching qualification, because I always said for many years that when I went back into work after having my baby, I would be a consultant. So I worked for myself and went into companies, restructured them, and then short-term contracts, really. So I was never committed full-time to anything.
Well, let me just jump in right there, because I want to say kudos to you for doing what you did, because you were very strong. You know how many women who just feel stagnant or would just go to that stage, and a lot of us do that. I won't be able to pick myself up, or they hold on to what they had in the past instead of moving forward in the future, because a lot of times we think about what we used to have, the life that we had, but then you just stepped in and said, I gotta take care of myself. I have to allow myself to move forward. I deserve better. My son deserves better, and I'm going to give us better. No matter what that looks like or what the process looks like, I'm going to do it. And you did. And it sounded like what I'm hearing is that you started over. You fed yourself. You fed your spirit, and you decided that you're going to take a new course. So this is a whole new beginning, like not just a life-changing moment in your marriage, but then this is also a life-changing moment in your career as well, because it sounded like you pivoted and shifted into a new direction. And what you did was you draw a lot of positive things around. You fed your soul, and you pushed yourself into something greater. And a lot of times people And not to say that they can't do it or they won't do it. They need to hear that story and know that someone else did it, and that means that they can do it as well. So this story is very empowering for so many other people, because sometimes people feel stuck and they need that motivation, they need that push, and you did that. This is your story. It's giving them what they need to hear in order to move forward. And I'm so sorry that I just had to put that in there, because I feel like it's powerful, and that's the whole reason why we're here, to share our story so that it helps someone else. I feel like we're bridging the gap. We're bridging the gap and allowing other people to be able to openly share, because most people aren't transparent. They're very vulnerable. They don't want to tell their story. They don't want to talk about the things that happen. Sometimes people wear that S on their chest, the superwoman, and we're doing so much, just as you said, and you're helping so many people. But at this moment, you're like, it's time for me to help myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I loved, in time, I didn't at first, I had to stop my life because I constantly made myself busy, because I was totally avoiding myself for many years. I had to stop and confront myself. And within, a matter of weeks, I'd say about 8 weeks, I actually really loved being with myself. I wanted to get on that sofa, I wanted to do my online courses. I stopped the social life. I just wanted to kind of be with me. And I felt very negative vibes from people. And if I felt them, I knew that you can't be around me right now, because right now I need nothing but positivity. And I think this is where many people fail in starting over. They're judged and they're questioned, and especially with a different generation, parents will say, like my mum used to say to me, yeah, it's not that bad, Emma. It's not that bad. Yeah, Mum, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. And you might have accepted that in your generation because, as you know, I'm sure you know, we do generally repeat the patterns of our parents. Mm-hmm. So there are all similarities in the relationships we have that our parents had, unless we break the cycle or break the pattern. So I was fighting against that as well, really. And I just said, right now, Mum, whether you think it's right or wrong, that's fine for you to have your opinion. But I need to do what I need to do for me. And I'm not feeling right at the moment. And I'm going to keep going on this journey until I feel right. And as soon as my mindset had changed to, I don't care what anybody else thinks. This is my journey, my life. And if I make mistakes, then I'll recover from them mistakes. And if I have my wins, then the right people, if they're around me, will champion me. If they're the wrong people, I don't really want them around me anyway. And I did get, I don't want to say brutal, but I felt that I was quite brutal in my boundaries were really, really firm. And I've read books on boundaries, and it just all come really. And then while I was doing the coaching, I was like, hang on a minute. And Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi always say, to find your purpose, find your passion. And if your passion can serve others, it's going to be a damn sight easier. So I was like, wow, I am a motivator, and I was an inspirer in business, in sales. One of my biggest strengths was getting the best out of people. So I just, as the journey went on, I thought, if I can turn all these motivational skills around to empowering women, to let them know that, yeah, you're going to have hard times. This is not an easy journey, but my God, when you get to the other side of it, it's so worth it. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to have the confidence to do this and not be scared of what's going to happen until it kind of happens.
That's right. That's good. There's two things that I want to say. I want to unpack. There's so much that you've given me, so I want to unpack just a little. There's so many people who look for the approval or validation of their parents. They live for their parents, and they don't know how to say no. This is my journey. This is what God has for me, and this is what I'm going to do. Sometimes they just fall into whatever it is that their parents want them to do, or the expectation, and they live with that and become so guilty, and not even realizing that they're carrying on unnecessary stress, and that they can getting other diseases or other things set into their body for carrying that kind of stuff. So just the idea of you saying, you know what, Mom, I just, yeah, no, I need to do what's right for me. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't do. They're still living for their parents, not realizing that God has given you a path. God has given you a purpose, and that you're supposed to fulfill that purpose for yourself, not your parents. Your parents can't go on the journey. Has given them their own life. Not to say, oh, become rebellious and don't listen, but you need to stand up for yourself. And that is one thing that I do, not even with my parents, but when outside people come in and they give me their opinion about what my journey should look like and or what I should do. I try my best, as you said, to place boundaries and keep people out of, because I understand that people are going to tell you what you should do or what you shouldn't do, and they haven't done it themselves. They don't know what that process looks like, but they're so eager or so ready to add input. And if you allow people to sow those seeds into you, that could deter you from your own journey, because when you're starting over or when you're starting something new, it's hard. It really is. And sometimes you may second guess what you're doing because it's tough. You're like, did I make the right decision? Am I going in the right direction? You start to question those things. But then there'll be things that's around you that can give you that nudge and say you're going in the right direction, or when something happens and things start to fall apart, or at least when you mentally think it's falling apart. And then you have those negative naysayers and just saying this, it's a distraction. And so I want you to talk, because a lot of times we talk about when we talk about what we're doing, we talk about the beginning and what that looked like. And then we talk about the finish line or the end once you come through, and it's like everything's not perfect, but everything's so much better. I want to unpack the inside, the middle part of it, the process, because I think that's the part that people need to know. When I started my business, it was hard for me. It was very hard. In the beginning, I didn't have a whole lot to invest in business. It wasn't the right timing, but I felt like God shifted me into it, and I had to trust Him. And then in the end part, when it all unfolded, it was just like people see that. They see some of the results, and they think that, oh, this person is doing this, but it's that middle stage. And that's the part that people need help in during the process, because it gets tough in there. There's some jabs. You get knocked down, but you also have to pull yourself back up. So just share and talk with me about a little bit just about what that process, that middle, like, your mindset or maybe some setbacks, some challenges. Let's talk about that just a little bit, if you don't mind.
There was lots of challenges, right to the point where 9 months into the journey, I had just thought, this is too hard. This is too hard. And my ex-husband was always on the sidelines, making it difficult and wanting me to go back. So 9 months into the journey, I literally gave up, and I was really poorly, and I went to the doctors, and I said, I can't get the strength here. I kind of ran up a mountain and really thought I was getting to the top, and then slid right back down again. I found myself in another relationship that I didn't want, that was distracting me. And I was comparing that to my ex-husband and thinking, well, I'm not really happy with this new relationship. Actually, was my old one that bad? Is it me? Am I the problem? I was always called a drama queen as a child. So I was conditioned in my head that I was a drama queen. So I kept saying out loud to myself, am I a drama queen? Was it that bad? Should I just go back? And then the doctor ended up prescribing me diazepam, which I actually didn't take. I took two I took. And I remember taking these tablets and thinking, and I got back with my husband for like a few weeks, and I was like, my God, what am I doing? The same behavior. I felt the same. I felt worthless again. And that was it, So I got back up. I told him to go, and that was it. It was done. So that was a major setback. Set me back for about 6 weeks, but it made me more determined, because I just knew that there was something out there for me. There was something better. And financially, I felt very vulnerable, which a lot of women do, which is why they stay. Luckily, my son actually wanted the separation because he didn't want me and his father to be together because we were toxic, where now he has his time with his father and his time with me is much happier. So my son wasn't really the problem. He was happy. It was the financial vulnerability. It was the not being able to see the future and how would I maintain this lifestyle that I had, and who really is going to come and save me? Who can save me? But while all these thoughts were going through, I was also working hard on the personal development, doing the courses, reading the book.
Yes.
You know, Mel Robbins, no one is coming to save you. Tony Robbins, nobody is coming to save you. So I started turning the who's going to come and save me and when are you coming into nobody's going to save you, girl. You're just going to have to get up your ass and you're going to have to get it sorted. And if you want it enough, you'll get it. And that I just kept thinking of my son and thinking, right, when he's older, I am going to have taught him that no matter how bad and tough life gets, you can reinvent any time if you really want to. And he was my kind of, you know, the everything, the passion, the drive, the want to succeed. And then on the journey, I was getting involved with more women like me. And that lifted me because I realised how strong I was because I was in a lot of divorce support groups, emotional support groups, alcohol abuse groups. I was in lots of groups with all these women. And I was reading their stories thinking, oh my God, would you actually, you know, when it happens to you, you accept it because you have very low self-worth. When you read it happening to somebody else, it's like you get your fighting gloves on for them. So it's not okay for them to be treated like that. But when you're damaged and you're unhealthy, it's okay for you to be treated like that because you kind of believe you deserve it. You don't believe anybody else deserves it.
Right.
So I was great in these groups. I was going, you know, come on, you know, if this was me, what you've just posted, if this was me messaging you with the exact same story, what advice would you give to me?
Mm.
And obviously the answers were always, yeah, but I'm not strong enough. So, yeah, here I am today, really, empowering women and absolutely loving everything I do and loving my life for the first time in 48 years. I can actually say I'm aligned to who I am. I don't really care what anybody thinks of me because I love me. So if I love me, then that's going to be okay. My son's happy. I love me. My clients are happy. I put in so much work, unpaid work, to support women. So the rest is all going to come for me. I know it is. I just got to keep going forward.
It sounded like you said that you connected with like-minded spirits or like-minded people. And that's what happened when we clear that negative energy. We start drawing in people that's going to be heading into the direction that we're heading into. We start drawing to people that are seeking purpose. You start drawing to people or that's trying to make those big changes that you're making. And next thing you know, you have a whole community or a support system, and you're like, you know what, this is what I need. I feel like there's a saying that hurt people hurt other people. Well, during my journey of healing, I realized that healed people can heal other people because you may be healed in an area that I'm not. Sharing your story helps me process my story. It helps me to release and let go. It's just something about hearing someone going through something so positive, someone going through something positive and being able to overcome. And it gives you that, it gives you the courage, it gives you strength so that you can fight for yourself and become healed or move forward in that area in your life. And that's something that I had to learn for myself. And a lot of times there were so many things that I did not know. But I went out there and I just started seeking. I got help and I started placing myself in position so that I could move forward and so that I could become healed. That was the biggest part. Identifying where I was, and acknowledging where it was, because it's not okay. It's not okay to stay there, and the only way that you'll be able to move forward is when you acknowledge the fact that this is what's going on or this happened in order for you to move past it. Because if you pretend like it didn't happen, you're allowing yourself to be stuck in a situation, and you won't be able to see where you're headed in the future, or even be able to get past that cycle in your life. And things do cycle around, they do. And that's one thing that I've learned, because I've seen things happen in my life at one point, and then I've seen them come back, and I have to say, hold on a second, this feels familiar. This has happened before, so why am I here again? Especially when I thought that I've healed or I've exited that season. Why am I here? And so I have to go back and identify, okay, what went wrong, or what happened, or what did I do, to that for the reason for me being back here. And so once I learned how to do that and process, it's so much easier for me to release, forgive that situation, and forgive myself for blaming myself, because I know that I'm 9 times out of 10, I blame myself for so much, and I shouldn't have, because a lot of things happen in our lives, and it's out of our control. We can't hold on to it or nor beat ourselves up. We have to let go. So forgive the situation, forgive a person maybe, and forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself is the huge one. But just what you said then, before you started your healing journey, you wouldn't even be aware that you're repeating a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
The strength that you have is that you're aware now when something doesn't feel right. You're aware, and you can act, and you can change, and you can forgive, or you can. But before that, you think of the many years that them destructive patterns, a lot of the time, have constantly repeated in our lives to implant them further into us. So that's an amazing statement when somebody says, I knew it didn't feel right. It's like, yeah, we're there. You're well and truly on your healing journey because you're aware and you want to stop it. I mean, sometimes you go with it a little bit longer than you should, but you're still aware, and you can bring yourself back as soon as you're ready.
Yeah, even if sometimes I felt like, I've had this setback, and okay, maybe I'm not doing this right, or I'm doing this wrong again. And then I thought, when I talk about it, that's when I realized that, okay, maybe I am doing this correctly. Maybe and it's not necessarily a setback. Maybe there's still something that's there, because there's always, whenever there's a trigger, it's an indication, okay, that there's still something here. And I'm just trying to figure it out, like, and then I just reach out and just ask the Holy Spirit to reveal that, to bring forth that, whatever it is, so that I would be able to identify, and so that I can be able to work on that area, so that I can move forward. And a lot of times people are unaware of what's going on. A lot of times people feel like they're healed in areas because they don't feel anything, because they've gone past it. Oh, I've moved past it. I'm healed in that area, and then when it comes back around, it's more of, okay, why don't I heal? But sometimes healing takes a little bit more work than what we think.
We'll always attract after years and years of attracting that problem or that feeling or that particular style of person, or it's a really hard habit to break, but you do 100% break it in the end if you want it enough. It's all about wanting it enough. Whatever you want out of your life, if you want it enough, you will get it, as long as you don't give up. And there is no, in my opinion, there is no such thing as making mistakes or failing. The only mistakes and failings of life will come from people that don't even try. We will only ever learn from a wrong move, or maybe not a right move, however we want to put it. We will learn from that move, and that move will take us into a direction we're supposed to be going. And then if you can master that, you then conquer fear. And if you can conquer fear, you can master life, because the only thing that sets you back in life is fear.
Let's talk about fear a little bit. Fear can have you in situations, or your mind thinking that there's something there and it's not really there. Fear really can paralyze a person. It'll have you stuck. It'll grab hold of you. Fear just it can cause anxiety. It's hold people in their tracks and they're not able to move forward. It's just fear when it grips you. It's almost kind of like, and I hate to say like anxiety, or fear can cause anxiety, but it holds on you so strong. And a lot of times people go back into what they feel that is safe, even though it might not be, it could be something that's unsafe, but because of the fear of moving forward, or when once fear gripped them, they don't want to move forward anymore. They rather just go back because they're afraid of what's ahead of them, not knowing that what's ahead of them is because the Bible says that our ladder will be greater, which is the days ahead of us. It's going to be greater than the days behind us. And fear will hold people back in their past. So, and they aren't able to see the greatness that is ahead of them.
I think it's learning to, especially when I coach, with my clients, I really focus on keeping them totally in the present right now, because I say that there's you can't control the past, and you most definitely can't control the future. The only bit that you can control is the right here and the right now, the moment that we're living in now, and the decisions that we're making now. And if you can be comfortable in the present, then you're in a powerful state, really, because you will only, it's human nature, no matter how strong you are, to fear the future, because we always fear things we're not in control of. So if we just stay in the present, it will calm the anxiety. And there's lots of things to manage fear and anxiety. It's like, let's put it in perspective. Whatever you're fearing, tell me, what is the absolute worst outcome? And my clients will say, I don't really know. Well, it's not that bad, is it? And they go, no. So why are you fearing it?
Right.
And it does work. And then I say, get outside. Go and get some earbuds. Get some audio. Let's listen to some podcasts. Listen to some self-help books. Go and walk in the beautiful countryside that we're all blessed with, and we don't take advantage of. And look up into the sky, and you will see nothing is moving. Everything is okay. This is you in the present. Breathe it in, enjoy it. And so many of my clients that have never read or done audio, and I was one of them. I didn't read books or do audio books. I was like, what's one of them then? They go, oh, it's amazing. It's amazing, Yes, you can love music. That's great. But going into your mind all the time when you're in the car or when you're outside or you're walking the dog or you go for a jog, you're at the gym, put something constructive through your ears that is going to change your life. Not just something that you can sing to.
Right.
There's no excuse for people that you're too busy. You're not too busy. You're just not prioritizing your time to make yourself better.
You know what? I have a confession. I have a confession, and I'm going to share this with you. So I went through this healing journey, and there's this group that I'm in, and so we help other people to heal, to go through that process and heal. And so and it's a ministry, right? And so the pastor asked us, where do you see yourself in the future? What part of the ministry that I wanted to serve in, right? And I was supposed to think about it and then, just talk about it later on, just give them a response. And I kept telling myself that, I don't think I can do this. This is not for me. And I didn't have an answer. But the truth is that it was fair. The group has, and I don't want to say that I'm codependent on the group. I'm not. It's more of, I feel like once I remove myself from the group and I go out into the world, and I am afraid that maybe I won't do well and I won't be okay, and I don't want to lose what I have. So I'm afraid to give it to someone else. Like, I know that whatever gift God gives us, it's for someone else. But I've been wanting to save it for myself because of fear that I would come back to this place. And it's almost like, it's kind of like, how whatever you do, when you reach a level, you have to maintain. And I'm afraid that I won't maintain it. Like, I don't want to go out there and and I don't want to lose myself or lose what I built. You know what I'm saying? I want to keep my connection with God where I am and not go out there because I'm afraid that sometimes you know how you become unfocused or you just kind of just get yourself wrapped up into something else. You see it a lot of times. People start off at a certain, when they build momentum and they elevate, you know, and they go to that next level and they forget where the roots started and how they got there. And that is my fear, that if I elevate, or maybe I'm fearing the success. That's what it is, because I feel like if I elevate, I don't want to mess up, and then I don't want to mess up and lose what I built. And it's almost like I'd rather stay here at the hub and just take in everything that I can versus going out there and give what I have to give. I don't want to forget where I came from. I guess that's what I'm saying, because I want to keep my connection with God, and I feel like the world will suck that out of me or take that away, and I'm afraid to let that go. That is my truth. That's my absolute truth.
You know, and a great truth. We should always be transparent and totally authentic about ourselves, and you know, share your fears, share your wins, share your fears, and that is the absolute normal, to want to be in your comfort zone, in your safe zone, where you've got it all worked out. I'm okay here because I'm serving great, I'm aligned, I'm feeling fulfilled. But the little voice in the back of your head is saying to you, no, there's more. You've got more to give, girl. You've got more to give. Oh, I know I have, but I don't want to because I want to stay safe. But
making excuses for myself. I have them.
Absolutely. And the power really comes when you get into your growth zone. That is where the magic happens. It's being in the growth zone, and you will never lose your connection with God, because I can see already you're so passionate about it. So what really, stepping out there and sharing more of what you have, what do you have to fear really? What's the worst that could happen?
Yes, that's right. That is correct. And so I'm so glad that I said that. I'm really glad, because I think that that's a part of healing. And that was exactly what I needed to work on. I needed to let that go. And you know what? Maybe that's going to make a difference for someone else, because I'm sure that there's someone else out there who's probably going through that exact same emotion, who's afraid to move forward because they don't want to lose what they have. And that is one thing. Okay, revelation. So when you let go of something, you're releasing it, and not that it's not going to come back to you, it's going to come back to you in another form. So whatever you let go so that it automatically comes back to you. But you can't, if you don't release and let go, you won't be able to see what else is coming. You're holding on to the past, or you're holding on to something else that you thought that was just perfect. Oh, this is great, and I can just stay here. But the moment I let go of that, I'm pushing myself for something greater to be drawn to me. But if I hold it in my hands and I stay there, that greatness is just held up. That whatever it is that where I'm supposed to go or what I'm supposed to receive, I can't receive it until I let go. So that means today, at this 5:30, 2022 at 8:10 a.m., I'm releasing my fear, and I'm letting go. I'm letting go so that I could draw whatever it is that's next for me, and so that those doors can be open. I will not remain stagnant. I will
Love
not. It. Yes. So thank you.
Well done, girl. Love it. Yeah, you've got to let them doors open. You've got to let things go so new things can come in for you. Otherwise, you're going to block the doorway, and nothing's going to come in or out.
Yeah, a lot of times, and I hear people say, talk about self-sabotaging, because a lot of times people become afraid and they don't move forward just because they're afraid of what's next, or if I receive this greatness, or if I receive this gift, I don't want to abuse it, or I don't want to misuse it. And they said, you know what, I don't want it. That's okay. I'm okay where I am. And they can become so much more, and that's trusting yourself and also trusting God, but vice versa. Trusting God and then also trusting yourself, so that you can move forward, because you really don't know what you can become until you start.
Absolutely. And like we said before, don't try. You're never ever going to know, and you will remain stuck. And I read this amazing book, this audio book, And you're going to have to forgive me. I'm on the HRT, so my brain fog does not allow me to remember things. An amazing author, I will come back to you on it. But he actually says in this book that, you know, we're kind of on this world. We're in this world, and we're like tenants, and we have a landlord. And we don't know when the landlord is really going to call kind of time's out, you know, your lease is up. It's time for you to move out of this world. And it really, really resonated so much with me. And I thought, wow, you know, I'm 48 and working towards my 50th celebrations already because I like to be organised. And I thought, my God, you know, I'm over halfway through my life now. And how many years of pain have I lived through? And if that landlord comes and tells me that, you know, my lease is up next year, what really have I achieved? Will I leave this world making a difference, you know, leaving a legacy, leaving a memory, really making an impact on other people's lives? Or, well, I will now. I truly believe I will in the short time that I've been doing what I do. But previously, before this journey of mine, if my landlord had called my time up, I would have left this world thinking, all I've brought to this world is kind of feeling sorry for myself and accepting abuse and not being the greatest version of myself and not being the greatest mother that I really am now. Surely that's worth the risk to look at the future and say, you know, when I leave, I want to have made a massive difference and not left with any kind of regrets.
Yes, that's so good. You know, I think about that a lot, and I tell people, I spent the first half of my life, which I'm turning 41 next week. Next week, Monday, I'll be 41. And so I spent the first half of my life, not to say serving myself, because I've served others, you know, but I also, when I say serving myself, it's because I chased after what I wanted, you know, the things that I thought that was, you know, was success. So, and not that I didn't serve others, because I gave and volunteered and, you know, all those things that makes us feel good about ourselves, you know. But I also, what was important to me was where I was going, the plan that I had for myself. And once it all fell apart and I had to pick up the pieces, I made this promise to God that I would not go back. The next half of my life is going to be different from the previous half, that I would not go in that direction. I would let go, and I would serve with purpose. I will do whatever it is that He called me to do, because in my mind, I thought that, you know, just growing up, I thought that, I wanted to be a CEO of a company, and I wanted to make a six-figure income, you know, and you chase those dreams, and then it's just like you've taken on so much in order to get there, because I made it up in my mind that I had a plan, and I was going to work my plan. And then when I did, it was just like, okay, what's next? And I mean, during that process, I was knocked down so many times, just going after, just chasing the wrong thing. And so this time I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't like the way that old life looked. I definitely don't like how it felt. And I will no longer serve myself. I was not going to do that. I was going to serve with purpose. I was going to do whatever it is that God called me to do, no matter what that looked like. I don't care what people say. I had someone recently made a comment, and I don't think it was intentional, that my old life was really good, and that I did very well, and it kind of nudged me into like, why don't I go back into? And I said, yeah, it's almost like living for someone else's expectation, because I'm not where I used to be, but I'm growing, and I'm growing in the ways that they can't see. So only thing that you see is this part of it, but I know what God is doing in my life, and I also know what He said. And so I'm going to move in that direction, the voice that I hear, that God is speaking to me. And so that was hard for me, of just letting go, because a lot of times my mind reverts back and think about what that life used to look like, the good parts of it, not the bad parts. And easily I had to remind myself, well, you remember what it took. And do you remember those days that you cried in the car? Do you remember that depression? Yeah, do you remember those days? And so I was just like, I'm not going back to that. I'm not going to live that life. I'm not going to put that type of pressure on myself.
You seem to kind of revert back a lot to like expectations. You seem to put a lot of expectation upon yourself. And where do you think that kind of comes from? Is that something that's come from your childhood, or is that something you've put on yourself? Or it's I can feel it very strong from you, is this massive expectations.
You're exactly correct. You're exactly correct. And I was just processing this just a couple of days ago. It was childhood. It was something that I picked up through my childhood, having to prove myself and looking for acceptance. And I have lived a life, and I just had this conversation on yesterday. I've lived a life where I wanted everything to be perfect, everything to be perfect. And I'm going to tell you this really crazy example of how bad things had to be perfect in my head. So, my sister lives with me, and one day she was taking out the garbage or whatever. And so the trash can, I have an issue about my neighbors and how their trash is outside, and when they don't have it placed a certain type of way, and then the weather comes and it could be a windy day and it blows their trash into my yard, that disturbs me. I become angry because I make sure that all of my stuff is a certain type of way, and so that it doesn't ruin someone else's yard, doesn't fly out there. And so one day I was leaving home, and I saw that the trash can lid was lifted up. You know how sometimes you have too many bags stuff in it, the lid's up?
Yeah.
And I was so outraged about that trash lid look. So I came in from the gym, and I went inside and got my gloves and rearranged the whole trash can and all the trash in the trash can so that the lid could shut tight, because that is what I expected for. But saying that's the appearance that I wanted to have. And it was just, something's wrong. This does not make any sense. Who rearranges the trash? Because it needs to be perfect. It needs to be, and I've lived my life perfecting myself and everything, it just, and finally I just came to, I'm working on it slowly but surely. Yeah. I'm working on it. But I finally said, you know what? I put too much pressure on myself. It does not have to be perfect. I'm so concerned about the way that I was viewed or the way that things look. And I was just like, it doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't, because people are going to say whatever it is that they want to say, and I can't control that. And so I don't have to try to be perfect so that, so that I'm accepted, because that's not the way that I want to live. But I have definitely lived my life trying to be perfect and just trying to change things so that everything could be a certain way. And I remember being that way with my younger sister and brothers during certain times when we were growing up. I was always trying to make things easier for them, trying to make life better than what it was. And I spent a whole lot of time, and that's where it started at. And I've lived my life trying to make life easier for myself, easier for other people, trying to be perfect, a people pleaser. That is exactly correct. Yes, fixing everything. I wore that S on my chest, and finally I ripped that thing off and said, I'm not living like this, but I'm still working through those. But the biggest part for me, and I say this kudos to myself, because I've acknowledged and I've identified. And now I'm in a place where I'm forgiving myself, and then I'll be at a place where I can release it all. But yes, I definitely see my bad habits. Yes, I'm well aware, but I'm not going to stay there, because it's not okay. And a lot of times sometimes they see, some type of behavior in themselves, and maybe they don't recognize it. But for me, I do recognize, because I'm continuously trying to become better, or working on myself and trying to dismantle the behavior or the things that I've learned, so that I can undo those things that I've done and move forward.
But I mean, I don't know about it. I mean, especially in the UK where I am, it's just getting known, kind of. Mental health is becoming more acceptable. The schools are getting more aware, but I have many conversations with people that say, you know, we learn this behaviour from up until the age of 7 is the most powerful time, believe it or not. And we learn all these kind of bad habits or unhealthy habits. Yet there's nothing in schools to promote personal development over in the UK. I don't know whether there is where you are. And it's heartbreaking because these kids grow up with, you know, I don't want to say damaged, but unfortunately, a lot of them are really damaged and never actually go on to live a healthy life because they don't know what a boundary is. You know, they don't know what a personal development book is. They spent all their life firefighting. And it is just really frustrates me that the education system does not put in the curriculum something that makes us self-aware of what a boundary is, how to feel worthy, how to feel good. But they don't. So we get into our 40s, generally, the women I deal with, or, you know, the majority of them, have come out of an unhealthy or an abusive or a toxic relationship, that they're not only reinventing themselves, they're having to absolutely find themselves and work out how did I get to this age and be in this position and not even know it?
You know what? I think that, and this is just from my own observation and from my own life experience, I feel like, especially for women that are career or goal oriented, you know, we chase those things for so long, right? And then when we set up this and say, okay, well, I've got the career that I have, I'm making money and I want to have children, I want to be married or whatever it is, or however, whatever order that you put it in. And then it's like sometimes it's like when you rearrange your values and your priorities, when you start to make those changes and when you start to say, okay, well, this isn't work for me, or once life has beat you down, and then you're like, okay, because you've experienced some things now, and so you're trying to make those changes and adjustments. That is when you start to see. That is when it kicks in, and you're like, okay, hold on, something is wrong, because it always seems like when all hell breaks loose and you're trying to change and you start to want to figure out, okay, I need to know who I am, or you're trying to find your identity. It always seems like when something wreaks havoc in your life, that is when you decide that you want to change, and that is when all hell breaks loose. And that is when we end up trying to make those changes and those great big changes in our lives. And we hadn't realized that all of this stuff was going on until everything falls apart. And when you try to pick up those pieces, that's when you're like, okay, hold on a second. And then you go back in time, and then you have to unravel all the stuff that you've been through and try to figure out, where did this start from? And when you ask, you know, about my childhood, yes, absolutely. When you dig deep and you go to the root of it, that's when you realize, because you see that behavior and you go back and you said, oh, it all started here. And then you find those examples and you see it. And then it's just like, oh wow, this is what happened. This is the, and but there's some things, when you really trace it, there's some things in there that you'll figure out, and you'll start to see when it happened when you're a child. You'll see it in your youth, in your teenage years or early adults and stuff, and you can put those pieces together and just be like, this has been going on for so long, but you just missed it. I don't know if it's because there's the blindness that we say, oh, I was blinded or I had the shields over my eyes, but for some reason, when the blinds come up, then you start to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe my behavior was this way.
Or I accept it that way, and you're doing all of this from probably one of the weakest positions you've ever been in. You know, it's from a position of pain. You're having to find yourself a position when you're at your most vulnerable time. You know, you're having to do this work to find yourself, and I think that's why so many people give up, because the first hurdle is acceptance. It's accepting where you are and why you're there. And a lot of people don't have the strength or the support system around them to actually confront that. And that's why it's so, so sad. So sad. So we can just do what we're doing, and that's, keep shouting about, you can recover, you can reinvent, you can find your own self-worth, your own self-value. You've got to find your passion. You've got to find your passion to find your purpose. When you've got your purpose, you've got a reason to get out of bed in the morning and excel at everything. If you've got no passion or purpose, you're just Groundhog Day. You're just getting up, you're making the kids breakfast, you're getting the kids to school, you're like a robot and we'll just wait till we go to bed and then we'll get up and we'll do it again. There's nothing exciting, nothing to look forward to. We might book a holiday a year, and that's great. But, I cannot advocate enough about finding your passion and your purpose, how it changes your life. It immeasurably, unbelievably changes your life when you find it. But you've got to find yourself first.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Miss Emma, this has definitely been a beautiful conversation. And I feel like you have shared so much, and I feel like we were able to unpack so much. And hopefully the people that are going to be listening to this podcast can relate, hopefully that it helps them to heal in an area. Hopefully your story will give them the courage to move forward and don't look back or don't feel like they have to be stuck, and that they can become anything that they want to do by just letting go and moving forward in the right direction, or whatever direction that they have planned, hopefully in the direction of the purpose and passion.
You just got to keep going. If you hit a block, get up, step over it, keep going, and it will come. What's meant for you will come to you if you keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you for those last words, because that was wonderful.
This episode is sponsored by the Twindle Foundation. The Twindle Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to changing the wealth gap of African Americans and minorities by increasing homeownership. Did you know that 44% of Black families own their home compared to 73% of white families? A barrier to minority homeownership is student loan debt. Through scholarship, the Twindle Foundation is providing minority students with an opportunity to take on less financial debt. To give to the Twindle Foundation, visit www.twindlefoundation.org.